So the Black Keys. For more than 20 years, these guys have been a constant in modern rock. It feels like they've found a way to beat the system, right? Well, today we're going to dig into their amazing story, a story all about resilience. Let's do this.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in Akron, Ohio, a Rust Belt town. And their story doesn't start in some fancy, polished studio. No way. It starts in a damp, probably rat-infested basement with a super cheap recorder. Their sound, that raw, gritty sound, it wasn't a choice. It was a necessity.
And then, flash forward, from that exact same basement, they somehow end up at the absolute top of the mountain. We're talking selling out Madison Square Garden, collecting Grammys like they're going out of style. I mean, they became one of the biggest bands on the entire planet. That jump from a leaky basement to a sold-out arena, that's the huge leap, right? It just makes you wonder, how on earth did they pull that off? How did two college dropouts from Ohio build this career that's not just about being famous, but about this incredible, almost stubborn refusal to give up? That's the question we're going to answer.
All right, section 1. We're starting where it all began, Akron's basements. This place, the Rubber City, it's not just a backdrop. You have to understand, its gritty, blue-collar vibe is literally baked into their music. It's the crucible where their whole identity was forged.
So get this. The two guys who started the band, Dan Auerbach and Patrick Carney, they literally grew up on the same street, but they couldn't have been more different. You've got Dan, the popular kid, captain of the high school soccer team. And then there's Pat, who basically described himself as a total social outcast. You would never look at these two and think, yeah, they're going to start a band together.
So how did they even get together? It was basically a happy accident. Dan was supposed to record a demo, but his band just didn't show up. So Pat stepped in, and that was that. They both ended up dropping out of college, kind of going all in on music. And the best part? To pay for their very first tour, they started mowing lawns. And get this, they got fired a week before they were supposed to leave because they did a bad job edging somebody's lawn. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. A perfectly unglamorous start, right?
Okay, on to their sound. How did they actually create that signature Black Keys vibe? In the beginning, it was like they were musical archaeologists. They were digging up this really raw, primal sound that felt super old, but also brand new and aggressive at the same time. And here's their blueprint, laid out perfectly. They were absolutely obsessed with these Mississippi hill country blues guys, like Junior Kimbrough and R.L. Burnside. Now, this isn't your typical blues. It's way more hypnotic, kind of trance-like. It's all about these gritty, repetitive grooves. So they took that as their foundation, and then they just injected it with this raw punk rock energy you'd get from a band like the Stooges. That's the magic combo. 14. Just 14. So what's that number mean? That's how many hours it took them to record their entire second album, Thick Freakness. And they did it in Pat's basement. Why? Well, they had already spent all their record label money on rent, so they literally had no other option. It just shows you their whole mindset. Just get it done. No excuses. All right, for a long time, these guys were the kings of the indie scene. But then came the pivot. Two huge decisions that were about to change, well, everything, and shoot them straight into the mainstream. Okay, first up, they started letting commercials use their music. And, the indie world immediately screamed sellouts, but their response was just so practical. They called it cheerful pragmatism. Basically, they were like, look, one Nissan ad paid them more than their parents made in an entire year. That cash gave them the freedom to keep making the music they wanted without anyone telling them what to do. And the second game changer, they brought in an outside producer for the very first time, the one and only Danger Mouse. And you could just see the difference right here. They went from that raw, gritty, just two guys in a basement sound to this rich, layered, professional studio sound. Suddenly there were organs and flutes and all these other musicians. It was a total sonic evolution. And where did that evolution lead? Straight to the top. This was their coronation. They were about to become one of the biggest rock bands in the world. I mean, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Look at this climb. Back in 2004, Rubber Factory gets to number 131 on the charts. Okay, not bad. But then, jump to 2008, their first album with Danger Mouse, and bam, they hit number 14. And then, just 2 years later, Brothers just completely explodes, hits number 3, and suddenly, the Black Keys are a household name. And the success was just insane. The two albums back-to-back, Brothers and then El Camino, they just owned the Grammys. That song, Lonely Boy, was absolutely everywhere, a massive global hit. Dan even snagged a Producer of the Year award himself. It was official. They had conquered the music world. But you know what they say? What goes up? Well, a reckoning was coming. All that non-stop touring and recording, it leads to burnout. And for them, it led to a long break and eventually a very, very public crisis. So here's a quick look at that bumpy road. In 2015, they just hit a wall. Totally burnt out, so they took a nearly 5-year hiatus. They came back in 2019 with a new album, but then 2024 happens, they have to cancel a massive North American tour. But here's the thing about these guys. Instead of hiding, their first move was to get right back in the studio and make another album. Classic Black Keys. So what exactly went wrong with that 2024 tour? Well, you could call it a perfect storm. Step 1, management books this huge tour in massive arenas. Step 2, the tickets just aren't selling, like at all. Which leads to step 3, they have to abruptly cancel the whole thing. And step 4, they fire their entire management team. It was a messy, public fall. But again, instead of disappearing, they took all that anger, all that frustration, and poured it right into a new album. And the title they chose says everything. No rain, no flowers. It basically became their new motto. This idea that you need the bad stuff, the hardship, the rain, to get to the good stuff, the flowers. It was them telling the world, we're still here. Which really brings us to the big question about their whole career, doesn't it? Think about it. They started out as these super raw indie blues purists. Then they became these practical arena rock giants. And then they faced a huge public failure and just got right back up. So it makes you ask, in an industry this tough, what's more authentic? Sticking to your original roots no matter what? Or is real authenticity just about surviving, adapting, and finding a way to still be standing after more than 20 years? It's something to think about.